They get back out this morning when I'm here the whole time. Riveted.
So we don't have any other apologies noted. Confirmation of the agenda. Are there any items to note there? No. So I'll put that. Do I need a seconder for that? Thank you. All of those in favour? Carried. Right. So, look, before we get into the other items, just the areas of focus today. It is a reasonably light agenda. I don't want to jinx things, but I'm hopeful that we can skip through, the public agenda reasonably quickly. Yep. And then leave plenty of time for some more meaty items in the public excluded agenda. So, I'll leave that at that. So, are there any declarations of interest today? Right. Specific. Right, thank you. And no members of the public speak? No, great. Okay, so that leaves us with item 5, page 7 of Diligent, and that's the minutes for the meeting of the 21st of June 23. Are there any items of accuracy? Those? Okay.
Show me as in attendance, does it? I was just about to move it. Does it show me as in attendance? Was I not? I thought I was. Was I not? Question mark.
You're an apology for absence.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so then I can't move it.
I'm happy to move.
And
I'll second. Next thing you'll second.
Against carried. Right. Okay, the Chief Executive report. Over to you, Lance.
Thanks, Chair Kieran. I'm not going to repeat everything that's in the report. I think the headings and the dialogue's reasonably self-explanatory. Obviously, the economic outlook is vitally important, and we'll have a more detailed discussion around our finances as we come into the 10-year plan workshop on the 11th of October. And obviously, we've just had the end of year finances reported to the recent Finance and Monitoring Committee, and for those elect members involved in the CE Review Committee, there's some discussion there as well. And that report will come through the that subcommittee council in November. Just some other things since we last spoke at this committee. Legislative changes before Parliament rose around water reform and the Natural Built Environment Act and Spatial Planning Act replacing the RMA. All that legislation went through, which we've outlined in the report here. We all know the uncertainty that water reform has caused and is continuing to cause. And we're approaching the 10-year plan as we have to legally, along the lines of the legislation that's been passed, notwithstanding the fact that, there could be a change of government in a few weeks' time, and if National Act get in, then they're talking about repealing the current legislation. But as I think David said previously around 10-year plan, we're going to have to be reasonably agile because we may have to make some changes, but it's all very unclear at the moment. But obviously we'll keep elected members updated on what happens if there is a change of government and a change of heart. But we all know that it takes some time to actually pass legislation, even though you say you're going to repeal legislation within 100 days. That could be anywhere up till April or May or something like that, or longer. So, and possibly, we might be doing a 10-year plan and then having to do a 10-year plan review. But who knows? And we just have to cross that bridge when we come to it. I think probably around the RMA side of things being replaced with these two acts is probably the work that's continuing through the Mayoral Forum. Is just around getting ready for the new future around resource management and looking at a planning secretariat for the region. So I can assure elected members there's The CE's forum has actually got staff doing a bunch of work around this, and they'll be reporting back through the Merrill Forum and into each constituent council around that as well. So I just give you the assurance that there is work happening. Obviously, that's pretty a bit of a slower burn than Three Waters, but Blair's team are all over that and working closely with Chris McClay, who's from the Regional Council, who's been asked by the Merrill Forum and the CE's Forum to lead that piece of work. Obviously, that includes working with iwi as well. So watch this space. But I think pretty key thing in there is some of the maximum fines that have been increased, quite significant. And Andrew Parsons and I have been talking about this recently around, any prosecutions and things like that, then potentially, we could be facing stiffer fines and that sort of thing. So we need to just be cognizant of those things. And as we come into the 10-year plan and carrying on from the risk this discussion today, we'll highlight those as we go through circular sections of the 10-year plan budget. General elections, obviously, we'll wait and see. We have been visited by a number of the parties, and me, Paula, and other elected members have been meeting with leaders and other representatives of all the parties. So we've been apolitical. So we've actually phoned all of them. And you'll be aware that we've got our investment proposals and also a white paper around what a relationship high trust model could be around any city deals or sub-regional deals could be in a white paper that we've written along with Tauranga and Queenstown and circulated that to government departments. Long-term plan, I won't talk too much about. The Western Bulk Water Main, Andrew briefed council about this a few weeks ago. My understanding that the works been carried out, and I know, Andrew, you've been out on site personally, and good progress is being made. But as in our previous discussion around risk, it just shows you when you have, sorry about the pun, but the flow-on effects of climate change and climatic conditions, e.g. down the river, and erosion being exacerbated and sped up by essentially water coming down the river and consent conditions in Lake Taupo and also Māori River Power, etc., having to look after dam levels. So we will be subject to those sorts of things. So I think it's just something to be cognizant of as we go into the 10-year plan. The last thing I just wanted to mention, there'll be an email going out to elected members today and also to staff just around Future Fit, which is about us right-sizing the organisation and looking at how we're operating and bringing a number of efficiencies and our effectiveness as an organisation. So we're kicking the structural side of things off now that we've done the SEG team on October the 16th. So a number of staff will be potentially affected by that. There'll be proposals going out. We'll be talking to those people. Obviously, we go through full consultation. We'll be doing that in 2 tranches. We've actually looked at risks around delivering the 10-year plan, the uncertainties around Three Waters. So there'll be a first tranche of areas of the council affected before the holiday break, and then we'll be looking at the second tranche is actually working for those people as we get into the new year. So I'll send a bit more detail out about that to elected members this afternoon. And Dan might mention it in his report later on, but we've been working with the unions around that and making sure that we've got staff being support channels for them and also for leaders to make sure there's leading through change and also some resilient training for people as well. So I'll leave it there, Madam Chair, and happy to answer any questions on any of those topics.
Thank you. I'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, thank you. Lance, could you expand just a little bit? And I know you're sending an email out to hearings later, but could you give us an indication of numbers of staff that may no longer be with council after this process?
Or
So-
would you prefer to do that in PE?
I'd
Oh,
rather do
sorry.
that, I'd rather do that in PX because
Sorry.
there's some sensitivities because the staff don't know yet.
Sorry,
Happy to do that in
I
PX.
should have made that coffee, not decaf.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Have we had any complaints about any issues as a result of the Western Bank issue?
I'm looking at Andrew here.
No, it hasn't. The supply has not been disrupted at all.
That's our aim, that it isn't.
Any further?
I'll just expand on that and just check. In terms of other areas, they'd also be exposed to higher flow rates and probably a faster degradation. How are we keeping an eye on that?
So even this matter was identified through our normal process of regular inspections and audits and had been identified some time ago. And so the team had been preparing designs and preparedness for remediation. What happened though was the erosion on the riverbank occurred at a rate far greater than anticipated over a very short period. But we were ready, which is why we are in mobilise. So, but simply because of our processes in place around these processes.
So have we increased the frequency of checks that will?
I'll check over the team, but the frequency, everything, the system has performed well. So I don't think there's any need to increase the frequency of what we're doing. It's identified this and allowed us to respond appropriately.
Thank you. It's a question on that one, or comment, just in terms of that, last time we discussed it in the relevant meeting. I mentioned the need ahead of the LTP to have that, because we were talking about critical asset risks this morning, to understand what the risks around critical assets on the riverbank, given its instability and highly erosionable.
Is that a word?
Erodable, thank you. That's the word I was looking for in the back of my brain. The environment is very soft, and we know that we're always going to face certain events along the riverbank. So I still want to have that sort of more global look at it when we come into the LTP, so that we can sit back and feel comfortable that we've provided the right amount of resource for response, please. Thank you.
Okay, if there aren't any further questions for Lance, I'll move that the committee receives the report. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, councillor Ewan. All of those in favour? Against? Carried. Right, that brings us to safety and wellness report. I invite Dan to come to present that to us. Page 62 of the pack.
Okay. Oh, I can move up one. It's easier for presenters.
Taking up space, please. Second part around the legs.
Over to you, Dan.
Oh, thank you. Well, look, as always, we'll take the report as being read, but just to highlight or emphasise that the contents reflects our performance, our organisational performance, our focus and effort around health and safety and the activities and initiatives that we're currently undertaking to keep our people safe. So, of course, there, and both myself and Marie are available and ready to take any questions.
Does the committee have any questions?
Yes, sorry, I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. While ago in our inductions, I'd mentioned something about how the names escape me. What's our community app antenna? How the risks and incidents transferred from the community risk into our order.
Yep.
And I understood there was no connection. Is there an opportunity to create that connection? And if so, how, how can we get better visibility of what's happening in the community in terms of incidents and safety issues and accounts?
Yeah, so our health and safety system, Aura, records organisational safety events within the operation, within the council. Anteno records those that are external, so those events that happen in the community. My understanding is that there isn't, they don't talk to each other in terms of those sort of systems. However, staff that are operating out in the community, if there was a safety event that was related, that would be entered into our Aura system.
Aura is totally for our health and safety operations for our staff, our workers, and significant risks by our contractors shouldn't interfere. So we're really focused on that. But as Dan said, if one of our workers was out working and there was a safety event in the community and there was a hazard as a result of that, certainly we would be expecting it to get reported into our system.
Emma, also, customer services receive all those requests, so they escalate them. So there is a manual way to get to daylight that, but to systematise it is something that we're looking at as part of the simplifying of the systems that we talked about earlier. Yeah, so that nothing's been lost. It is captured, but there's an opportunity to systematise it further.
Did you have a question?
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. I note 15 new worksite reps trained.
Yeah.
That's great. And I guess how many does that make in total? And then after their training, what kind of systems have we got in place to put the Hamilton City Council lens over that training and integrate them into the wider rep family?
Yeah, no, great question. So our health and safety reps participate through health and safety committees that support the operations and support businesses and those groups. So they provide a very important voice on behalf of our employees. I'm gonna, in terms of the numbers, Marie would have the confirmed numbers, but
we've got approximately 90 across the organisation.
Yeah.
Over and above the health and safety rep training that they do, and we've had 15 latest recruits go through that. My team, the business partners, actually take them through some modules around how we operate health and safety within our organisation, because what often happens, they go externally for training, but they don't know how we operate and our expectations. So that's a big part of it. And then being part of a committee, it's crucial that they are.
Thank you. It's terrific. I see that there's minutes for the meetings. Is this in this report?
Yes, so that reflects the Safety Governance Committee meeting.
All right. So that's at a
Yeah.
these committees?
Yes. So look, I believe we have a strong employee representation, and that sort of makes up our kind of overarching, kind of committee structure as well. So those health and safety committees play an important role in terms of escalation, but also providing that lens in terms of those operational risks and the risks that they get exposed to. So they provide a very important, lens across that.
I did note that in the in one of set of the minutes, a couple of our GMs talked about pressure on staff and staffing levels, etc. That might not be a question for you, but maybe for our CE, just in terms of the future fit change that's coming up. How might we be able to best support staff who might already be in challenging workload situations?
There's a couple of parts to that. The first thing is actually once we've locked down as a management team what our establishment schedule is, and I'll talk to you about PX around numbers and that sort of thing. Then a key thing is to actually make sure that we fill our vacancies, and Dan's team, you know, we've had a bit of a challenging period, but I think we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel now. We're getting more applicants, more quality applicants, and we're replacing people quicker. And just in recent months, we're getting a little bit of a drop off in turnover too. So that's a key thing for us, is to make sure that we tackle those things so that essentially, you know, if I'm really honest, we've probably been running the organisation on about 80 to 85% staffing and achieved, you know, a hell of a lot in the last 12 to 24 months. Getting out the back end of that, the job market's getting a bit better. So that's one angle of it. But for the people who are in roles, is making sure that we look at people who are under that pressure, and then how do we actually utilise other staff by reprioritising to actually help them, especially if they have the right skill sets. It's easier to throw them in there. You would have seen in the budget that we have used some outside people for short periods of time as well to help out as well. So, and we all know around the organisation is pretty, you know, everyone does a great job, but we always have 200 who are what I call the go-to people. We need to increase that, and that's part of the leadership development program and our development program, so that we expand the capability of the workforce that we've got. And I think we have got some potential to do that, so that we don't end up with people being involved in 10-year plan changes and 5 other key projects for council, so that we actually spread the load. So that's a bit of a long answer to your question, but there's sort of a number of strands to it, and then we can measure that through metrics. And one of the metrics is around, you know, the number of people who are using VTAE and EAP services. In Dan's team, not only with Marie from Health and Safety, but also our HR advisors work very closely with managers. So if someone is under pressure, obviously all those things are confidential, but if people have got issues, then we actually work those through with people to make sure that they're supported. We've noticed that, you know, if you look at the stats, a lot of the pressures are coming from outside of work. And, you know, and I'll be quite honest, I've had a number of people approach me and talk to me personally around mortgages coming off fixed rates. Some people going from 2.95% to, you know, close to 8% or 7.5%. And that's pretty hard for people who are on, you know, a couple of smaller incomes, them and their partners. So we're getting those sorts of pressures, and we give them as much support as we can, and you'll see also in the reports that we've had support people actually going into the workplace proactively. They're independent people to actually work with the staff, and I think that's showing that that we are being proactive in telling staff that we care about them and that they can confide in those people. And one other place we're looking at is do we look at some home budgeting type assistance as well, and we'll do that through referral. But how do we do that to help people out who are in financial, you know, challenges?
Just raises one more question, actually, maybe to you, Dan, with regard to EAP reporting. No doubt that you get that kind of information on the issues and things. Does that get reported up into our committee, and might there be timeframe for that?
So it gets reported through ELT. So we provide monthly reporting to ELT with statistics and data insights around what we're sort of seeing from the EAP. We sort of see that as a kind of a positive metric, and through motion, through a lot of the good work that we're doing organisationally, look, we're seeing people take up that support, which is what Lance was talking about. So through our main provider, but also through VTAE as well, who provide more sort of on the ground support, and some other more specialised support in other areas like dog control, animal control, transport, city safe. So they do a very good job supporting us through that. So that information is available. And so I think has previously been provided in some of them are certainly.
Then we could forward the latest version round
So
to,
we could,
round
we
to the
could, we
committee.
could circulate that.
Want to get some visibility?
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Yes, it's part of was answered, but just one other, in terms of the flu vaccinations and other things, that was 474. What sort of percentage of the organisation is taking up on those preventative health measures? 174, that seems quite good. 30%. Is that what you'd expect in any workplace? About 30%?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite good. And the cost of, we do assessments of the cost of time when staff are away. We've had a lot of flu this year, a lot of flu and also COVID again, of course, plus the gastroenteritis and.
We have a dashboard, so when the managers open up,
Oh, we've all had time for these, yeah.
the HR system, you get a dashboard that comes up and it talks about turnover, it talks about lost time injuries, it talks about absenteeism, all those things. So it's basically right there in your face. Each time a second or third term manager opens that up. So
Not in our face.
no, but the answer to your question is that yes, there has been more absenteeism through sickness. Obviously, you know, COVID sort of earlier in the year with a new strain, but then we ended up with colds and flus, and then we had as you say, there was a gastro bug going around the Muni building.
It wasn't all.
I think we've come to the end of that.
Angela.
Oh.
0, Ange.
I won't say it started on the ninth floor.
We certainly promote and encourage people, you know, to stay home if they're feeling unwell. So we've certainly continued to continue. Our overall absenteeism in organisation is around 3%, 3 or 4%, which is fairly normal. So that's you know, nothing out of field. And as Lance said, look, we have that metric that we can report on as required. So the team managers, HRBPs kind of keep an eye on that. And certainly if there's kind of concerns in areas, we can delve into that. But overall,
And I was just interested too, because I know from some other organisations have been involved, and that because we've got this new working from home in the office balance, people are saying, I'm working from home because I'm sick, and then they're getting paid for it. They're really not performing. Potentially, if they're sick, right? So some businesses are saying, if you tell us you're sick, you're on sick leave, that's it, end of, you're not working from home.
Yeah, and absolutely. And, you know, they're you know, part of a, you know, management conversation in terms of how their workload is managed and whether they, you know, are able to continue
We're not
working.
seeing an increase of people saying that sick, I'm still trying to get paid work during sickness on them.
Not at all.
So the trends are similar to they've always been prior to this new way of working in the world.
Yep.
Cool, thank you.
I think the people who have like symptoms,
And work.
like people like
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, being cautious,
Yeah.
there's a great line there.
do you capture that data?
Partially sick.
Grace.
Just a couple of systems questions for me, please, if that's okay, Dan and Marie. I'm always interested how we're going on the strategic progress, so paragraph 8, the chart. And the obviously critical risk key ones that you're working on, your verified controls. It interests me just from a process perspective, then what seems to be going back to do a bow tie assessment. I thought the controls might have come out of the bow tie assessment, but that's neither here nor there. Critical thing for me is that's all good work, and I'm glad that's the case, but these critical risks are extant now. They are in the organisations. There's no sort of red flags around the controls at this stage while you're still in the process of confirming and then doing the bow tie assessments. You understand what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
I think,
we can't avoid the fact they still exist, even
Correct.
though we're doing this corrective work, this update work.
Yes, so the most important part of this piece of work was the validation
Yeah.
of the controls actually out
Yeah.
in the business.
Yeah.
So we've got the critical risk, we've got the controls that have been recorded, but are they actually in fact operationally controlling the risks? So the validation part was a key part of that. So that's what's being worked through.
Yeah, and I think to your point, the business partners in my team are actually out on these sites. That's a big part of their role. So they are visible, they're talking with the people that are doing the critical part and actually and making sure that actually we are working to how we need to while we're going on this journey of getting to the final critical risks.
No, that's good. Look, and the other question that I had was, Maureen, thank you that we've been included on the various notifiable events. And so previously the meetings here, and we have talked about particular, should be in PX possibly, but particular contractors and the events that have occurred. Are you happy with the post-event investigation response out of our contractors generally?
Yeah.
Systems wise, you're happy?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And for those type of events, they're reporting into Aura, and we're making sure we're overseeing investigations.
Brilliant. That's great. Thank you. Yep.
Actually, I have a question leading on from that on the notifiable events. So page 64 of the PACS, paragraph 17, you mentioned a small electric shock, but I didn't see that in the attached. So which event was that?
That was at Nitric Bay at the waste. On Nitric Bay.
Page 69. Page 69.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, somehow I missed that. And does anybody else on the committee have any further questions before I launch into mine? Okay, so you mentioned about dashboard reporting and real-time reporting and what have you. Can you give the committee an idea of what are your aspirations with, where are you going with the reporting?
So we've just launched phase 2 of Aura. So we've got quite a comprehensive number of modules within our incident management system. The whole intent for us is to make sure that we're educating business unit leaders, our people within those units as well, on how to access and report an event. More importantly, for the business unit managers, knowing how to go in and look at events in real time, daily basis, whether it's daily, weekly, fortnightly. They can produce their own reports with the intent of them actually knowing and seeing the trends and what's happening within their business straight away. Not waiting for the safety and wellbeing team to come in and identify that and raise it at ELT level. It should be that they know about everything. They're asking the questions, they're having those discussions at their lead meetings, and knowing that if someone is hurt so badly and they're now off work with a lost time injury, actually they know about it and what's happening, and we're notifying the likes of the ELT, so that we're actually getting our people in the business unit to manage their health and safety on a daily basis.
Oh, great. That all sounds really good. And at the last committee, we spoke about the Safety Governance Committee presenting to this committee. When's that planned for?
We were looking to bring Greg along for our final meeting this year. So I think we've got that scheduled in December. So the idea is that we bring Greg along and provide an overview of the safety committee effectiveness and the work that we're doing in that space.
The committee didn't have any further questions. I'll thank you for that presentation. And I'll move the recommendation that the committee receives the report and recommends that council receives the report. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Ellen. All of those in favour? Aye. It's carried. Thank you very much. Right, the risk management report. We got, where is it?
Yeah, thanks. Yep, the. Oh,
There we go, right in the nick of time, Nick.
I don't think so.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Kia ora, everyone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I just want to start talking about acknowledging the fact that for the last 3 hours, we've already been talking about these 12 risks. So I do want to thank you all for doing that. And then I'll take the report as read, and there's just a couple of things that I will highlight for you all when I log in. Yep, so there's been 2 changes to residual risk ratings this quarter following reviews of the residual likelihood ratings. So SR4 has increased to very high and SR7 has decreased to high. And so these changes reflect that these risks are live. And as we move through each quarter, we do expect them to change. And also this quarter, we've included some emerging operational updates that sit under a few of our strategic and organisational risks. And we've done this to show some of the work that's happening just under these risks, but also to acknowledge that if these kind of smaller operational emerging risks do eventuate, that it could trigger some of our bigger strategic risks. I can confirm that either the risk owners or responsible managers are in the room or online to take any questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Nick. I have just a couple of questions around, I'm on page 84 of Diligent under Lake Taupo levels, but in particular our mitigation for low level river in terms of the pump. I just want some confidence because everything that Neva is saying, all of those criteria for the hottest ever summer for this country is coming. And I note that last 2 summers ago, we nearly made it to alert level 4, which was historical. So that's significant for residents. So just in terms of the barge or the pump, whatever thing you call it, when is the last time we trialled it? I want some confidence that we're ready in case we need to use it.
Councillor Ange, Andrew's just walked in the room, so that what your first question, if you could.
Evelise is also online.
Oh, okay.
So she, yeah. And just in terms of, because we've actually never used it. We've trialled it, I think, a couple of times. So when was the last trial? Is it still fit for purpose? And have you got everything you need? And like, you don't need any funding because I guess my concern is, are we ready? And we have actually never used it. In what? What's
Anger.
anger?
I've never used it in anger.
In anger. Oh, yeah, that's a good word. We've never had to use it to keep water pumping for our residents.
So
She'll
we
know
would.
what I'm talking about.
Apologies, the microphone has a bit of a delay online.
Would you like me to take the question? Would that be easier?
If you do have the answer, Andrew, that'd be great. That incorporates water stimulus funding.
Yeah, it's quite quiet too, actually.
Come to the table, then.
Come to the table.
Sorry for.
No.
Come to the corner, yeah. Make you sit on the corner. Holding voice, what?
I'm deliberately uncomfortable. That's what he said when he moved away.
So this started a number of years ago. So Lake Taupo has a minimum operating level, and it became apparent there was a risk that river levels could drop significantly through the entire river system, including the city. And at the time, in response or preparedness for that, we developed as a business a pumping platform. It became apparent fairly early on that arrangement was not fit for purpose for a city of our size. And so I don't recall the exact year, but would have been around 2014, 15.
2014.
Yeah. We funded the construction of a purpose-built pumping platform sized to meet the city needs should there be a low river scenario. And so the idea is the platform would actually sit out in the low flow and then lift the water into the intake of the treatment plant. It's a contingency only. It's never been tested in anger. It's been tested to the extent it's possible, knowing that the river's not low, And the most recent test was funded through the use of the Better Off Fund. So that's, that's passed all of its tests, noting that it's never been used when the river's actually low. I would characterise it as an emergency provision. And one of the things we would need to look at in the city, and we'd flagged in previous infrastructure strategies, is the need to rebuild the entire intake structure to protect with climate change. That's a very costly exercise. It's certainly not something we're looking to promote in this 10-year plan, but it's something that must be considered in the long-term future as climate events occur. If I go to the most recent Taupo levels, as at about a month ago, that lake level in Taupo was on quite a steep trajectory downward, which is unusual for this time of year. Normally through snow melt, it's on a steep trajectory upward. That downward slope's been arrested with recent rain, but it just shows how quick things can turn and how susceptible we are to rainfall and snow melt in that upper catchment.
Just thanks. Just to follow up, I guess, because we don't put it in, we don't operate it, right? We have, and isn't there only one contractor that can? They're still here, they're still operating.
Yeah, so it's not something you can deploy within an hour, but when you're tracking river levels and lake levels, you do get some notice. So there's a whole water alert system, and you have weeks or even months to respond. But the system's designed to be trained into the river, and yes, we have a company, a local construction company that's helped with that deployment and can deploy when needed.
Actually, just while we're on the river, the Golden Clam. So not an issue at this stage, but what is the contingency plan? How is that to be dealt with?
So I'm still coming up to speed on this one. My reporter who is actually on the line, so I'll just give her a few moments. But by way of introduction, so my reporter is our waters manager. At the moment, we're including, as part of our regular inspections on water and wastewater treatment, we're including a consideration of the clam. But now that Maury's live, I'll hand to Maury to cover in the detail.
Hello, everyone. Yes. Oh, sorry, there's quite a bit of feedback.
Only at your end.
You're quite clear.
Okay, I will try. So we're doing a lot of inspections and monitoring it at the moment. And that includes diver inspections at our intake. And also monitoring our intake areas. So we're keeping close contact with MPI and WRC biosecurity. And also reaching out to colleagues in overseas areas that have an infestation of the golden clam, and trying to understand what kind of mechanisms they have in place to keep on top of the risk.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
In terms of the golden clam, I attended a meeting at Kaipiro last week. One of the mitigants is to manage human movements, Maury, and that was boaties mostly, and bilge water and other risks that they may bring them into our river network, which isn't here currently. Have we got plans for signage and things at at points where, you know, boaties might be entering the river? And is there a plan set up to raise public awareness about that?
I guess I have not been involved in the recreational side of the response. So I've been very much focused on our Three Waters infrastructure. But I do understand that WRC are leading in that particular area.
Maria Barry's working with the Regional Council and Biosecurity New Zealand. So at the boat ramps and putting up appropriate signage and that sort of thing about drying boats and watching them down and all that sort of stuff. So
they did talk about wash stations. Do you know if there are going to be any kind of?
It sounds like there's going to be one at Karapiro, but the reality of having one at the boat ramp in town and then at Puketi is probably a little bit unrealistic for the cost involved. And talking to Liz Stolwick from Waipara District Council and the events facility at Karapiro, it sounds like there's still some discussion going on with MPI around could they fund wash down facilities and things like that. I think the minimum's like 20 grand sort of set up for like a trailerised unit and things like that. So I think those discussions are still ongoing as far as I've heard, but I'll follow up on that anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just on that, Liz, Deputy Mayor Liz of Waipara is taking a huge leadership role in this. We're really grateful for her political leadership. So she's regularly in the ear of ministers around that, which I think we should lean into. It's great that she can take that. Well, I suppose, you know, working on the side of Karapiro all day long, every day long, she sees it. But it is going to look, it looks like a long-term control methodology as opposed to an eradication. So that's what it is. One of the questions I have is around, following on from Angela's conversation about Lake Taupo, when it's been low historically before, and it has been, it's probably about 5 years ago when it was at last, and then 10 years ago had a really big low. But in that respect, the risks around were not just the ability to pump water, but there were water quality issues. We had major algal blooms and Wellington Street Beach, for example, Max, you might recall that lake was just about green with algae because you don't get the rainfall and the cooling of the water through that. So I wonder if we've done any thinking about what other risks to the community there might be of low water supplies in our water catchment and risks we might need to manage. You know, they can be everything from stopping dogs, which I know we have some signage up at the moment in the lake. Dogs aren't supposed to go in there for some reason. I forgot what now.
Algal bloom.
Yeah, because
The red algal
drinking
bloom.
water.
That's right.
So we're going to, I think have we thought about that? Because I think we've been quite nice, last couple of years been quite nice, right? In the lake and the river comparatively.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're all ready to go.
Yeah.
With signage and things like that, advice to users, working with the user group. So Maria's team's pretty well versed on that, especially since that Australian red algal bloom came into New Zealand about 5 years ago.
That's right. That was the particularly.
It's quite toxic. That
Health.
Yeah.
I just think that as we go forward as a community, we should, and that, you know, we were talking about climate risk and things before. This is exactly what we're talking about. There's a whole lot of strands around climate risk and the exposure to bacterial and algal and call it parasitic blooms and other things is absolutely part of the issue.
Yeah, I think this is a significant risk, particularly in terms of our obligations to uphold as best as we can Te Ture Whai Mana o Te Awa. And so I have been following the Golden Clam kaupapa since it became known. Some of what I have heard is that the behaviours of sea recreational fishers and taking their boats into the river has transferred some of that This is what I've been hearing. And so the behaviour of fishermen and women is to put their whole boat into the lakes or into the river or the lake, and that's the easiest way to clean your boat. And so I think wash stations at some of our ramps is probably a necessary solution that we do need to consider. I think partnering, and I'm quite active on the river in the summer, and I do see a lot of boaties and their boats coming into the river just to wash their boat because it's easier, and it is easier. But if there's a wash station there, that might be more preferable for them to use, opposed to putting their whole boat in the river. And I think that we may need to have a discussion with the iwi, Waikato Tainui on this one, with Ngāti Koroki Kahukura, and with our upstream iwi also, so that the whole cost isn't borne on local governments. In fact, I think this is more of a central government investment risk.
I agree, and that's what Liz is trying to do, isn't it? They had that big open day down on Grantham Street and trying to educate all the boaties, but I think, did we contributed to that, or did YPAR put it on? Because it was a pretty big event last weekend around the health of boat. Was it WRC, and navigating safety? I do think we've got a role to play in supporting that request of government. Maybe we should lean into talking with Liz about that, for them to put some coin in for those wash stations, because it's not something that's going away quickly, is it?
Okay, so I wonder what is the most appropriate action point out of this discussion?
Well, we've got
These,
both. So we've got a personal technical advisory group, so they can pass it on into the process.
Right, thank you. Are there any other questions on the risk report? I would just say, I thought it was a really valuable session this morning. It'll be good to see that risk appetite work really being integrated within the decisions that council, elected members and council are making on an everyday basis. Hopefully that'll be a useful tool. And thinking about risk maturity, so we've got a risk refresh coming up next year, and I think it's probably about time for that. But also, and perhaps part of that process, once we've refreshed the risks, I would be very keen to see more focus on, at the moment we've got a section for each risk on existing controls, but I would like to see more transparency over the effectiveness of those controls and a more formalised assurance process around that. That would be good to see once we've done that refresh. But if there aren't any other questions.
Sorry, let's make one comment, please. So I should have made it before you look. I know you're looking to wrap up. One matter that I am reflecting on from my work elsewhere probably comes under risk 8 and risk 9, which is around crisis, emergency and climate change. And I am quite becoming more exercised, I think, in climate change. And that's actually some of the present and unknown liability we as a local authority face in this area. Because as I was mentioning this morning to Andrew and Blair, it seems clear now that if we get category 3 listed homes in our area, we're up to 50% of the buy-in. I mean, we're establishing a strong record now that the combination, and consequently, I think it heightens the issue that I think you were referring to earlier, Paula, about resilience. And actually, if we have areas at risk of category 3, in a heightened climate change environment, that might actually be more real for us. So it's nothing, I can't say it's anything more than that, but if we start to think about also financial strategy and having headroom, this is another unknown, unquantifiable liability at this stage, which might actually hit part of our thinking and planning. So look, I can only leave it as a comment unless you guys have done more work on it, but it's something that is very real. I mean, you have to look at a few other local authorities around the country that have been, to say, hit by this, wrong way to put it. But actually, I think we need to think about, is that a risk for us? or a feature of the risk, particularly under 8 and 9 as we have.
I think it's a good point, and you know the other discussions we've had here today about stranded infrastructure and ecology changes. They're all related to climate risk, and as I said this morning, it would be good for the committee to see some more granular, more sophisticated climate change risk analysis, which may well already be being done, but the committee doesn't have visibility over it at the moment. So if we could put that on our list of things to aspire to when it comes to risk.
Thank you.
Just got hold in the kitchen.
Right, are there any other questions on this report? Okay, if there aren't, the recommendation is that the committee recommends to council that council receives the report.
And I'll
Okay,
second.
thank you, second,
I'll
thank
second,
you.
thank you.
All of those in favour?
Aye.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Okay, let's move to the internal audit update on page 117.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Bruce, you do need to move. Sorry, next time.
Oh, I've been told off. Okay, I'll move. I'll move towel between my legs.
That's fine.
Always come and sit between.
Rose between.
Either way, it's gotta.
Tracy, and I'll ask for you to address.
So I'd just like to introduce you to Benita. So Benita is from KPMG, who, as Dave mentioned this morning, are our new internal audit partners. So just briefly, this particular paper today is just our internal audit update. The main update being obviously we do have KPMG now as our partner. So what I'll just do is just hand it over to Benita just to kind of give you a bit of an update based on the work that obviously we did this morning and the work that we've been doing with ELT, and then where to from here and what you can expect for the next report and the next committee meeting.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I just want to first off start by saying a massive mihi to everybody for appointing us as internal auditors. So it's really exciting for us for KPMG. We do a lot of work in the Waikato LAS and Bolt LAS, which Bruce do a bit of work with Bruce as well. So Hamilton City was sort of our final. Really looking forward to working with Hamilton City Council. So I do have the wider team. Obviously, David's leads the Waikato LAS and Bay of Plenty relationship. So he's the lead relationship partner. My role will be I'll deliver the day-to-day internal audit program. I also have Mutaza Ali, who's a director who will support me in the delivery of your plan. So that's the key leadership team that you'll see in the SREC and the committees. So with that, we have had a really good kickoff with ELT. So we've kicked off, David's organized a session in terms of how the internal audit partnership will work, and meeting with Tracy on a monthly cadence, making sure that we're on top of the business and what's, important to you. So that would be our day-to-day and ongoing cadence for communication. And the relationship management side of things, we did agree that the first review or engagement would be that ELT workshop.
Hello, could I just get you to?
He's everywhere.
Magic.
Responsive staff.
Thank you.
No problem. So I was saying that the ELT risk kickoff was our first engagement. And then, of course, you've had a really good conversation this morning. In terms of our next steps is developing a 3-year internal audit plan. And we have shared, our approach to developing that plan for you, the understanding your risk profile and what's important from a LTP objective is important. That helps us focus on things that really matter to you. So this morning session has been really useful for us to have that context. Next, we will look at historically what has been done from an internal audit perspective. There's a lot of work that has already been done. We don't want to be coming in and duplicating what's been recently done. So there will be some prioritization of not looking at stuff that's already done, making sure we're tying back to your LTP objectives and your risk profile and focusing on those key risk areas. And I think to your point, Karen, there are controls that are identified in your risk profile. That's potentially the first areas you want to be getting, you want to get comfort that if they are high in your key risks, that your controls are operating effectively in those areas. So that's kind of the approach we take. We also look at what's if there's any management assurance that you may be getting, other external assurance providers. Health and safety is a very common one. So again, making sure we're taking a holistic approach and not trying to double up with any other assurance that you may be getting. Once we've done that, we will come up with a indicative plan, work that through with Tracy, and then the broader ELT before we, come to this committee for feedback and, approval. So that's the plan. We will have a busy few weeks, I know, in working to, a timeline to get that to the next committee.
Okay, thank you. I think Councillor Angela, you've got a question. Thanks, Chair. Thank you and welcome aboard. You just touched on it right at the last moment there. I'm just interested in, for the next 3-year program of internal audits, what that might look like, how, whether the first touch point will be this committee, which is I think what you just said, but how will elected members be able to feed into that?
So it is that after we've done that prioritization working through with the ELT, we will bring a draft
to a workshop.
Yeah.
Can, if you want to, probably in the morning of the December meeting. It'll always be in draft and you can always change and add anything you like.
Okay, all right, that's the assurance. I mean,
yeah.
I'll talk to the mayor and
if there's specific things
There is
already
one
that you,
very
yeah,
specific.
absolutely, just let us know. We can pop that in, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Other question?
Just question, it's really a matter of process here, Tracy. I should know the answer, which I don't, unfortunately. Do we have an internal audit charter? And given we've got Benita and team coming in on place, is it up to date? With purpose?
You say charter?
Well, we should have, I mean, it's one thing to have an internal auditor, but actually they should be working to a program and the charter should protect their position, the framework, whatever we want to. We don't have one.
Will be from years gone by through PwC.
Yeah, we probably just need to.
Read it and update it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question.
Without, I'm
Yeah.
not over eager. I just think it's important that we confirm that Benita and David, I mean, it almost goes back to Angela's question.
Yeah.
That they have a protected place within the organisation. The independence or quasi independence is confirmed.
Yeah, we probably, yeah.
Well, that's what draft. It's not nice.
Used it for such a long time.
Sorry. I'm just trying to have a seat. I'm sitting next here. I might as well have a crack. So.
No, that's all good. Thank you. I will take that, take a note of that. Sort that out. Yeah. Thank you.
So there has, because of the change of provider, there's been a bit of a hiatus period, but let's not forget the plan that we originally had in place for this year. And so the DA, there was to be an internal sort of review of delegated authorities. Where's that at?
In progress.
Right, so we can expect that in December?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, well, thank you very much. We're looking forward to working with the KPMG team. So the recommendation is that the committee receives, can I have a mover? Thank you, Maxine. Seconder, thank you, Bruce. All of those in favour? Carried. Organisation improvement report, that's you too.
Order, either you're one of these.
Was KPMG,
I'm going to sulk in that spot.
getting out
I'll
something.
post it online. How's it going?
He requires a lot of space.
Yeah, look at that. Easily accommodate you.
It was like Angela.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, with the 3 computers that are.
Lunch break.
Be careful. Okay, you're being distracted there, Chris.
Right.
Right, over to you,
Thank
Tracy.
you. So this next is our organisation and improvement report. So for this particular committee meeting, we're just bringing you the ones that are the high risk. And you'll see in attachment 1 that we've listed those ones there. Most of them are obviously either delayed or in progress, depending on sort of remembering these only got brought through sort of in the last year or so. In particular to my one, because that's the very first one on the list, and that happens to be mine and my team. So just a further update on that. So the team has actually started that and we're already working on that. We actually do need that as part of our LTP because that's the system that we're using for budgeting. So it did take a wee while to get them on board because remembering this is a system that they use across quite a few different councils. But just to let you know that that now has been started and we're working with them to get that delivered in the next couple of weeks. And then the only other thing that I just wanted to mention in this report, in paragraph 10, you'll just see there's an update there on the Waka Kotahi and the building consent audits and when they were last done and when they are next due. So Waka Kotahi was done on the 27th and 29th of June. My understanding is that it takes about 3 to 5 months for them to get that, turn around that report and get it back. Which seems a long time, but apparently that's pretty standard for them. So yeah, I'll just keep you updated with that next report in December as well. And I'll make sure I keep an eye on that one.
Living or finance, just out of interest.
Sorry,
Does it come through Angela's finance?
the Waka Kotahi.
It's normally this.
It kind of comes through here depending on what's on it, but by default it'll also go through Angela's depending on what's kind of in there. So probably does both, to be honest.
Okay.
Yep.
Happy to move.
Any other questions first? My question was, where are the Audit New Zealand recs, but now I'm thinking they probably weren't rated as high. Right. Okay, Maple, are you happy to move? We'll see. Thank you. All those in favour? Aye, it's carried. Right. And report update.
Good morning. News of this one, isn't it?
Let me start with it. Okay, so there's 3 parts to this particular report today. So thank you. I am going to start with the good news. So you'll see attached is the interim report that we've got for auditing the annual report for this year. So there are two points in there. One of them with regards to the evaluation of a couple of properties that we didn't quite get sorted. That's since been fixed and we've rolled that through the accounts. And then the other one was obviously just a recommendation around community and dealing with the community and getting their feedback and those such things. But overall, for an interim audit report, I'm very pleased with those results. That's my first
Back
bit.
a few years.
Don't even.
So the second part of the report is obviously about the audit fees. So you'll remember at your last meeting, you had quite a large discussion around that. Yeah, I was quite glad I wasn't here just quietly. So you'll see that we did resolve that and we have got the fees letter redone, and that is one of the recommendations in the report today is obviously to get the mayor to sign that off for us.
Just to clarify, when you say it's been resolved, the first year of the 3-year period has been resolved. And can you just talk us through the mechanism for the second 2 years?
Yeah, so one of the things that we agreed to do with that percentage taken off was review what both teams are actually doing during that audit, because obviously there's a money side of it, but the money side is more from the time and what time are they doing, what time are we doing, and what that kind of looks like. I guess that's from our perspective as staff what we were challenging a little bit. So myself and my team have met with the audit team to kind of go through what that would look like. We have, if not daily meetings, definitely weekly meetings to check in around what's happening, if we're behind, or what the expectations are, and those sorts of things. We've also given a lot more of system access over to the audit team so that they can go in and have a look at some of those things ourselves. So at the end of the audit, we'll sit down with them to figure out was their timings, which obviously falls into creating those fees, and what did that look like, and did it come up to what they were, what their draft, I guess, timing ideas were.
So that open book sort of approach will be on quite a granular level, so that rather than just telling us what hours you've done at the end of the audit, there'll be some liaison throughout the audit, you know, if it looks like you're going over or under on particular items.
Yeah, if I can answer
Yeah,
that. So the plan is, so we do our work allocation, and then you expect it to take, let's say, 8 hours. If you the person that takes 12 hours, we want to know why. Was it waiting on information? Was the information the wrong format, or was it just they didn't understand? So we want to analyze that to make sure that the hours that we set is reasonable. Where we had duplications on our side, let's say from our interim to the final, where there was a handover process and there was extra hours taking to actually catch up with what was done, then obviously we can't on-charge that, and we'll analyze that. So the whole idea is to sit back and to see how can we gain efficiencies on both sides, because previously we may have accepted things in a format that we had to go away and do a lot of work on, where it may be easier to get it in a format that's already sliced and diced in the right thing. So that's the plan.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted you. Did you have anything further?
And then the last piece of this that I just wanted to talk about was the LTP audit. So normally we would have liked to have brought that engagement letter through to this committee meeting, obviously for the timing that we're already heading into LTP. But we haven't been able to do that today, and I will let Clarence explain why.
Yep. So first of all, it's not ideal that we don't have the engagement letter on the agenda. What I can say is we've had our first meetings with the LTP team. We've agreed dates when we'll be on site, when to actually start the audit, when they'll be ready for us, what we can be looking at, all of those things. So although we don't have the letters out, it's not that we're ignoring it. The OAG owns the methodology, and they're busy working through the methodology. Currently, the reason for that is with the 3 waters and quite a few changes in that. How do we audit that? What does it mean? So it's just a bit more complicated than it normally is, and I think that's why it's taking a bit longer to just get that sorted. The engagement letter, the self-assessment, we've already sent that through to the audit team, to the LTP team. The engagement letter has been prepared. We're just waiting for formal approval that that's the final engagement letter. So as soon as that is approved, it will be sent out and we'll confirm the dates. High level, I think the plan is to go to art review in the week early March, so that there's enough time to adopt middle to end of March. So that is a very high level, but saying that working with the LTP team, that's what we're thinking is a good timing.
And last but not least, we're still on track to deliver annual report at the end of next month.
So I can give an update on that as well. So we've got the team on site. We've had some sickness, so we are trying to find people to just backfill our team. Unfortunately, we can't prevent that from happening, but we are trying to prevent it. Well, not prevent the sickness, but trying to prevent it dragging on. Team, as I say, is on site with the finance team being there as well. So that I think makes the process way more easier for both sides than working remotely. So it is tracking very well.
Tracking far better than last year this time.
Yeah. It's good to hear.
Maybe we'll get someone.
Hold on, I'll just open up for questions. Any questions on the report?
Any indication when they might have, the fees ready for 24-25?
Fees ready.
Yeah, our audit fees.
Oh, yeah, so this is,
So that's after after presumably you're going to wait until after this year's look at the open book.
oh, yes, sorry, that one, yes, yeah, thank you, yes. We will wait until after this year. But I think that's what we're challenging is the time.
We have to be sort of forecasting the LTP by then, really. That's the key point.
Yeah, that's it,
Yeah.
And can I just confirm in your report, the summary table on page 132 of our packet talks about 5 open necessary recs, but I think that there's only 3, isn't there?
There's 4 open, 1 that's been closed. There's
So-
1 has been closed and there's 2 new ones and
So we've got here open 5 plus 1 implemented or closed, another that will be followed up during the audit visit. So that should equal 7. But in fact, I think that top figure should be 3.
So one's off and one's on. So it gets you back to 5.
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay.
5, 6, 7.
So the recommendation, what page?
24.
24, thank you. Yes, so this is receiving the report and also recommend to council that.
I won't move it. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
I should sign it.
I'm happy to.
You gonna move it?
Yeah, I'm happy to move it.
Oh, second.
Thank you. Reverse code.
No.
It's carried.
Thank you.
Yeah. Free to sign the letter.
Right, we're now on to item 12, page 152. Mish, I guess that's you, the compliance report.
Yep, it is me. Thank you, Madam Chair. I've just got Greg Morton from my team who is available if we have any specific questions on the policy update that's attached as attachment 1 to the report. There's no protected disclosures or corruption to report or significant non-compliance with the Privacy Act. The list of council management and management policies is attached to the report, and I can take any questions on those that's needed from the committee. One of the matters that we wanted to bring back to the committee was the review of the compliance policy as it relates to the strategic risks that the committee has oversight of. What I have done with this is tied it to the protected disclosure and fraud and corruptions policies, which were subject to previous reviews this year with the committee, and trying to bring the theme of speaking up to effectively what becomes a suite of policies that we can sit together. In terms of monitoring compliance, we are going to use Shield for that. We've started setting up a couple of the pieces of legislation. I'm trying to just see what that looks like within my team. We're just quite cognizant of the workload and other work streams going on in the organisation at the moment in terms of rolling out compliance with further teams. And the plan is that once we've got the framework completed, then we'll be looking at talking to those teams about the risk management and mitigation and getting some assurance around that as well for the committee. So that is me. If there are any questions, Madam Chair, I'm very happy to take them.
Any questions from the committee? I just have some feedback on the policy. So firstly, comparing it to what's in place now, what is currently in place is a framework of how do we manage compliance? Whereas, as you say, the focus has now moved to the speak up component, which I totally support. But I just wonder if it's, well, it's very light to almost non-existent of how we actually do it. And I just wondered what was the rationale behind taking out a lot of that compliance management framework wording within the existing policy?
I've wanted to take it back to being quite a pure policy approach, because we, in terms of setting up the framework, would be using Shield to do that. And Shield has already got quite a lot of established documentation. But I'm very happy to take that feedback on board and revisit that.
Yeah, I just think a bit of high level guidance on effectively how we manage compliance. You know, even if it says we use the Shield system, which, you know, the general premises of it are, it just gives the reader the feel for the high level management, compliance management. And I did have just one bit of specific feedback on the new policy, and that's on page 165, paragraph 15. I just didn't feel comfortable with the wording of that. So this talks about confidentiality, but, you know, it could be construed that actually, you know, information that comes in might be, I don't know, hushed up if it's, you know, if it's of a commercial nature. And I think we need to just be really careful around that wording, because I'm sure that's wasn't the intention.
That isn't the intention, no.
Yeah. Okay, now sorry, just let me get back to find my page. The recommendation is that the committee receives and requests staff to incorporate the feedback received at this meeting on the draft compliance policy. We'd like to move that one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bruce. Second, cool, thank you. All of those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Mush. Right, so I think that then brings us to the PX. Yes. Thank you. Seconder.
Aye.
Thank you, Michael. All of those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Okay, right, so yes, yeah, let's